Four times in our nation's history, the candidate who won the popular vote lost the election. This is possible because of the system we use to elect a president. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about different ways to elect a president and why we should get rid of the Electoral College. So first I'm going to explain what the Electoral College is and how it works. Every state gets a certain number of electoral votes. This is equal to the number of representatives they have in the House plus the number of representatives they have in the Senate, which is always 2. This equals their total number of electoral votes. Every state gets one elector for each electoral vote. Those electors get to choose how they want to cast their electoral votes, regardless of how the popular vote is. What this means is that when people go to vote on election day, they go and stand in line and cast their ballot. They're not actually voting for the president. They're voting for how they want their electors to cast their electoral vote. But they're not necessarily required to cast them in that way. So why is this bad? Well, for starters, the major downside to this is that there's an all or nothing system. What this means is that the candidate who gets 51% of the votes gets all of the electoral votes. So the person who gets 49% doesn't get any electoral votes whatsoever. This means that you can win the popular vote without winning the presidency. Another reason why this is bad is that there's not equal representation in each state. What this means is that a state with a smaller population, for example, Wyoming, who has a population of 586,107 and has 3 electoral votes, if you divide those two numbers, you get 195,369. But take, for instance, a bigger state like California that has 39,144,118 people, divide that by their 55 electoral votes, you get 711,711. Compare that to Wyoming's 195,369 people per electoral vote, and you see that there's a large disparity, which doesn't make sense. So what that means is that the people in California, their vote doesn't count as much as the people in Wyoming. This, coupled with the fact that you can win the presidency without winning the popular vote, is why the Electoral College is bad. So let's explore some other ways there are to elect a president. One such way is a district plan, and this has already been implemented in a few states. So let's take, for example, a state like Colorado, a nice easy rectangle, divided into districts. Each district votes, and the person who wins the majority in that district gets that district's electoral vote. Think of it like the vote they have from the House of Representatives. And then the 2 remaining votes, say the ones from the Senate, go to the overall winners of the state. So why is this system bad? Well, remember, this system doesn't get rid of the Electoral College. So you solve the issue of 49%. It's an all or nothing thing now, just on a district level instead of a state. And you still have the issue of unequal representation. That was not fixed because every state still has the same number of electoral votes in the same population. So let's explore some other plans, like the proportional voting plan. In this plan, instead of 100% of the electoral votes going to one candidate or another, you would have a fraction of the candidates to try to represent how the votes came out a little bit better. So instead of 100% going to the blue person, you would have 60 and 40. But why is this system bad? You can't give a fractional vote. What this means is that it's never going to come out to be a perfect percent. There's going to be some people who don't get represented. Another reason why this is bad, it's still using the Electoral College system, which means that you still have the issue of unequal representation. Let's look at the direct voting system. What this means is you totally abolish the Electoral College. So when people go to vote at election day and they stand in line at their polling place, when they cast their ballot, they are casting their ballot for a person, not for advice for the electors to look at. So you would have, say, 3 candidates who each get a certain percentage of the votes. Now, the main problem with this plan is that it's just a percentage of the votes for no candidate to get a majority, just a plurality, which means that you would have to have a follow-up election and people would be less likely to come out for another election. So now let's look at the final one and what I personally think is the best system to elect a president. This is called the majority preference voting. The way majority preference works is that you have the list of candidates on the ballot. Instead of just picking one of those candidates, you rank them in the order that you think they are most qualified. Then the people tally up all of the number 1 votes, and if no candidate gets a majority, one candidate just gets a plurality, then they take away the lowest choice and they redistribute those to their number 2 choices. And that process continues until you get one candidate who has a majority of the votes. This is better than a direct popular vote because it has a built-in failsafe for if no candidate gets a majority. There would be no need for a follow-up election. So why is this system good? There's no 49% issue because there's no electoral college anymore. You don't have to worry about the majority of electoral votes going to the candidate who gets the most because there are no electoral votes anymore. You also have equal representation for every citizen regardless of what state they're in. Because again, you got rid of the electoral votes, so someone in California has the same weighted vote as someone in Wyoming. Another advantage is that the popular vote is the only vote. You don't have electors anymore. It is impossible for people to win the popular vote but lose the election. That would never happen again. So people get to say who they want to be president, and that person would automatically become president.